You've probably experienced this before. You're in a meeting and you've done the work. You have a solution that can actually move things forward. Then you finally speak, but the room keeps moving like you've never said a word. There's no pushback, there's no discussion, there's just silence. And then 10 minutes later, someone else says something similar, and then suddenly everybody listens. That moment is really frustrating, but it's also very revealing because most of the time, smart professionals don't get ignored because of bad ideas. They get ignored because of the subtle communication signals that shape how their ideas are revealed. Today, we're going to look at three of the most common signals that make strong contributors invisible and how small shifts can completely change how your ideas land. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Frustrated to Fluent. I'm Devon Bruce. I'm the founder and CEO of the English Communication Academy, and we're here to talk about what really happens when communication breaks down in healthcare. If you work in healthcare and if you've ever struggled to find the right words in high stakes environments, I've created a short guide called 10 Phrases Every Healthcare Professional Should Know. You can download it below or go to frustratedtofluent.com to learn more. Now, if this scenario with the meeting sounds familiar, you're not alone. I see this pattern across teams all the time. Very high performing professionals who are deeply knowledgeable, they're passionate, they're prepared, and very thoughtful, but they still get overlooked in group discussions. Many people assume that the quality of their work should speak for itself, but meetings, unfortunately, they don't work that way. In most professional environments, authority is formed very quickly, often within seconds, based on not just what you say, but how clearly you communicate it. What often happens is a disconnect between strong ideas and unclear delivery. Not because someone lacks intelligence, but because subtle signals weaken the impact of what they're saying. And once you start noticing these signals, you can actually change them. All right, let's get into it. Now, this first signal is something that I see in meetings a lot, and that's what I call the apology opener. This happens when someone begins speaking by unintentionally weakening their own message. It sometimes sounds like, well, this might be a dumb idea, but, or so sorry to interrupt, but I'm not sure if this is relevant, but when people do that, most people think that they're being polite, but what others hear is hesitation. So when you apologize before sharing an idea, you quietly signal that your contribution is optional or uncertain. And unfortunately, when that tone is set, it becomes easier for others to overlook what follows. The shift here is very simple. Lead with the point. So instead of apologizing, connect your thought directly to the conversation. You might say, building on what Sarah mentioned, or this brings up an important risk we should consider. When you state your idea clearly with no apology or no hesitation, you're just very clear. That small shift changes how people listen to you. The second signal is what I call the data dump. This shows up when someone has deep expertise but overwhelms the room with too much detail too quickly. You see this when someone presents numbers, background information, technical context, things like that, but they never clearly state the takeaway. The assumption is that more information creates more impact, but meetings aren't for reading reports out loud. They're for making decisions. And when people have to work too hard to understand your point, they stop listening. One pattern I've seen very strong communicators use consistently is a very simple structure. What? So what? Now what? So, what? Start with the key fact. For example, our patient discharge times increased by 15% this quarter. So, what? Explain why it matters. So, the delay is affecting bed availability and increasing wait times. Now, what? You offer the next step. I recommend we review discharge coordination across departments this week. That structure does something very powerful. It turns information into action. And leaders are always, always listening for action. Now, this third signal is quieter, but just as powerful. It's what I call the permission question. This happens when someone waits to be invited to speak. So they sit through the entire meeting, hoping, praying sometimes someone will call on them or that a perfect moment will appear. But meetings, they rarely create perfect openings because they're dynamic. Sometimes they're messy. They're usually very fast moving. And if you wait too long, then the conversation moves forward without your input. So over time, silence starts to send its own message, not intentionally, but perceptually. It can signal that you have nothing to add, even though you do. So the shift here is what I call preparing the terrain. So before the meeting begins, look at the agenda and identify where your input matters. That's how you know your entry point. Then, when that topic surfaces, step in with a simple bridge phrase like, that connects to something I've been reviewing, or I'd like to add one risk we should consider. Because when you do that, it's not about interrupting, it's about participating with intention. So if you've ever walked out of a meeting feeling invisible, it's worth remembering this. Most professionals don't get ignored because they lack intelligence. They get ignored because their ideas aren't structured in a way others can act on. So those small signals, like apologizing, overloading with detail, or waiting too long to speak, shape how your ideas are received. But once you recognize those signals, you can change them. And you don't change them by becoming louder or more outspoken or changing your personality. No, you don't have to do that. You can do that by making your thinking visible and giving people something clear to respond to. Because in most professional environments, the people who get heard aren't always the smartest, they're the clearest. All right, if this video helped you, please hit like and subscribe. I post new videos every week to help you build real world communication skills in your professional life. Also, please share this if you work in healthcare and if you've ever struggled to find the right words in high stakes environments. I created a short guide called 10 Phrases Every Healthcare Professional Should Know. You can download it below or go to frustratedtofluent.com to learn more. And if you liked this video, check these other ones out too. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Take care.